today is run day. I'm moving to work and I don't have enough time to do all of the things. And so I just record now because I don't have any other time of the day to be able to record. I don't really know what I'm gonna say or what I need to say, and just know that I should communicate regularly so that I can build my channel. I do have a long-term goal that I'm moving toward. That's the reason why I run every 3 days. That's why I'm trying to record and live stream regularly so that I can build the audience. I don't want to become a YouTube partner in the traditional sense of the word. The greatest strength of YouTube is not producing social content and making AdSense revenue. That's what YouTubers do to become stable enough to be able to build a large platform. But the real power of YouTube and social media is the ability to market and advertise something that you're trying to do. And that's what I'm doing with My02cent. My02cent is the brand of improving oneself through applied principles of science for your own benefit, And I think the main motivating factor for why I'm recording right now, there's two basic things. If you're on Facebook, you should definitely be going to my YouTube page if you enjoy these streams. But the main reason why I'm recording this morning is because of the idea of, like I've said 1,000 times, I'm moving away from speaking in terms of black and white. When it comes to people, there's no such thing as a black person, there's no such thing as a white person. Those are just arbitrary terms established to justify the discrimination of Africans and the scientific experiment of trying to turn a human being into a nigger. And what a nigger is, with the hard E, is something a little bit more intelligent than a animal, but not embodying the qualities of a human being. Because we live in modern times, but in the past, they didn't have access to the information we have. They didn't have the values and the principles. They didn't have, like, Albert Einstein didn't go to college to learn relativity because he invented it. Isaac Newton didn't go to college to learn his principles of motion because he invented them. So those things didn't even exist in their academic setting. Before modernization and the Industrial Revolution, it was possible for a person to know everything that there was to know at any given moment in time in society, and then to take all the knowledge that they had and expand upon the things that humans had. That's the reason why you had master artisans and master masons and master writers and poets and because the information component of the human condition was limited to the language that existed at the time and what we would accept as value for progressing human understanding. Hi, welcome to the stream. So, in modern times, we take all of that for granted. But the idea or the premise that as a consequence of European classism, Europeans and Caucasians went to Africa and kidnapped, bartered, or just simply coerced humans into being brought to the Americans as cheap free labor, where the vast majority of the people that was already indigenous and native of the Americans already looked like the Africans in Africa, because everywhere you went on the planet, people looked like not black people. That's the thing we need to stop doing. Like African people, dark skin and a very specific texture of hair. That's the problem. Like, you don't reduce the African to black because the Africans have their history. The African American, as uncomfortable as it is to say, we don't know our history because we reject the history of America. That's why we're African Americans. Because I don't know what happened for the 300 plus years that my African American ancestors were enslaved, but I know that they were enslaved for 300 years. I know that their ancestry goes back to Africa, even if I can't trace it back that far, by virtue of my skin complexion and my hair texture. That is my hidden legacy of my ancestry. That's the document. The document is literally my face. It's literally my hair. It's literally my eye complexion. That is the document. My DNA, before we could tap into the DNA and decode it and deconstruct it, the visual, who you are visually as a person, is the record of your ancestry. To the point where if you walk up to a random person on the street and you're like, you look like me, y'all do a DNA test, y'all probably are related. That's an empirical science, right? So that's the reason why I push against the idea of black and white when it comes to the idea of them as people. What we have to realize in 2026 when it comes to the dynamics in America is that we Americans, all of us, are human beings. You have to either accept the fact that all humans are human or that everybody's an African. Whatever works for you, right? There is two political problems taking place at one time in America. The idea that Caucasian Americans are the only valid legal American citizen in America, built on a foundation of their government being illegal by their own rules, because nobody invited Europeans to America and gave them permission to start countries. The indigenous Americans did not give Europeans permission and consent to build a country here. It never happened. In the history of America, it never happened. The history that we have is the one that the Europeans gave to the ancestors of Caucasian Americans, right? Because you have to frame things in a correct way of understanding and thinking about them. Before the Revolutionary War, before the Revolutionary War in America, the people of America were all European descendants, right? The 13 colonies were all European descendants. There wasn't no Hindu colonies. There wasn't no Chinese colonies. They were all European. They were all funded and operated as companies and corporations under European nations and European flags. And those countries ran themselves like colonial outposts of the government that they left. They governed themselves by the rule of the king and by what was right for the king and what was correct for the king. They governed themselves by the rule of France, by the rule of whatever other countries, Spain. Like, that's how it worked, right? So in that, the Revolutionary War was a unification of the European American colonists into one unifying identity, which gave us Americans, right? They all united, and they divided into Union and Confederate, the North and the South. And they were divided on one fundamental principle: cheap labor versus free labor. I'm going to say that again. When the United States formed, they divided from Union and Confederate under one principle: cheap labor or free labor. The Confederates liked their free labor model of having African Americans and uneducated, subjugated human beings working for free to maximize their profit margin. And the North profited from trading slaves to the South, as well as having an established educational hierarchy that allowed them to have better trades and better services. The North considered themselves to be of higher intelligence and more enlightened, and that stigma continues on to the present day, based on the fact that the South was based on uneducated, cheap labor, right? And so the North was like, well, uneducated, cheap labor is fine, but you can't progress technology because your ability to innovate will be limited to the artisans that you have. I walk to the stream. Will be limited to the artisans that you have doing the work. So if you're using ignorant, stupid, cheap labor to do your work, you can never advance beyond ignorant, stupid labor. You can't manage somebody that is incompetent to do competent things, right? That was the argument of the North. And the South was like, yeah, but numbers is more important. If we can come up with a good system that works to produce something of high quality with cheap labor, then we'll do that. But it just makes more sense to make things in mass than to make things in one as an artisan, right? That was the philosophical conflict between the North and the South at the time. Once automation came in and the Industrial Revolution became a thing, they both realized we don't really need humans to labor anymore because we can just have machines do the labor. We can have one human run one machine that can produce more output than 100 or 1,000 of the same people, and we can get it, and we can get concise, consistent, accurate values with less waste and less throwaway, right? So from that, well, I skipped the part of the Revolutionary War, but that's basically what happened, because the Revolutionary War is a unification of who won the argument. The Revolutionary War decided if we were going to have cheap, free labor by engaging in crimes against humanity and having slaves, or we're going to have cheap, underpaid labor, because cheap, underpaid labor has a better output of higher quality goods and services, right? But the Industrial Revolution made both of them obsolete. So even though cheap labor went out, the Industrial Revolution was like, well, you can make it whatever amount of whatever it is you're trying to make and whatever quantity without limit, because you can use machines to bridge the gap for artisans. We eliminate the artisans with automation. So we don't need to worry about the artisan component. We just need to have a person smart enough to run this machine, or we need a machine simple enough to be operated by anyone of any level of intelligence, right? And that's pretty much how we got to where we are right now. The argument in modern times is the legal exploitation of the average citizen for the profit of corporations, for the justification of just profit. That's the argument. When you're listening to politicians, when you're weighing does it benefit a Caucasian American to be racist? Like, what benefit do you get out of being racist? I'm gonna leave it on that question, and then I'm gonna go order my food, and then once I'm done ordering food, I'll continue to talk.
Thank you for choosing McDonald's. Would you like to use the mobile app today?
No, thank you.
What can I get for you?
Steak bagel.
Anything else?
Hash brown. Extra onions, extra breakfast sauce on the steak bagel.
Anything else?
That's everything.
Last finger, please.
So what benefit do Caucasian Americans get from institutional racism? What benefit do you get? What benefit do you get from being able to use the N-word and oppress African Americans and proclaim that America is the best and everyone else in the world is the worst? What benefit do you get? The benefit you get is laziness. You get to not have to work hard for a certain thing. It takes a certain amount of energy to produce anything. And the idea of institutional racism reduces your Caucasian American need to exert a lot of energy to produce a certain thing, because you're going to force somebody that is not Caucasian American to do all of the labor at your benefit and at their expense for your benefit. That makes sense. Like, I'm not trying to argue the ethics right now. I'm just trying to structure the axioms. That makes sense. Like, if I'm a lazy person that don't want to work, it makes perfect sense that I would just make somebody else do the work for me and then benefit from it, right? What benefit in 2026 with all the automation, all the advanced technology, cyber, the capacity for us to communicate across the world, having interconnectivity amongst each other, having paper that is justifiably recognized and acknowledged with zero conflict? What benefit in 2026 do you gain from being lazy and making sure that the person that's supposed to do the work for you can't afford to do the work for you to have a cheap product, when we as humans make all of the rules? What benefit do you have as a Caucasian American in that dynamic? You want me to work for you, but I'm getting kicked out of my apartment because I'm not getting paid enough money to pay my rent, so I don't show up to work because I'm getting evicted. And now you're wondering why you're not making profit. Why isn't my company making profit? Oh, well, this person having this problem, that person having this problem, that person having that problem. So you're losing money your inequality is costing you money, and your goal is to make money. Like, is inequality actually profitable? Good morning. And it's gonna be this one. Thank you. So is inequality actually profitable? Do we actually benefit as a nation from inequality? Does the idea that there used to be a time when you had to prove your worth, you had to validate, like all of the Kobe's and the Mike Tyson's and the Muhammad Ali's, all of these, thank you, all of these great people in the past that used to do the actual work to validate themselves and to prove that they were superior and great, was something that was used to be important. And Europeans used to have a monopoly on access to better food, better water, cleaner living conditions, to where it was easy for them to say, I'm better than the African because I have a modern way of life and they don't, right? But as we move into a more stabilized, unified environment, they still want to argue the same point, but we don't have any. We're more and more every day. We're all competing on the same playing field, and then institutional racism has to go out of its way to create inequality. Let me order coffee, and then I'll continue.
Hi, welcome to Starbucks. Can I get that for you?
Good morning.
Yeah.
Just a venti iced peppermint mocha.
Venti ice and peppermint mocha?
Correct. With light ice and 3 extra pumps of peppermint, please. And that'll be everything.
Just all the cream?
Yes, please.
Okay, perfect. Is that the all?
That's everything.
Thank you.
Good morning. want to get my coffee. I'll continue so I won't have to stop. Thank you. Have a good morning. So there used to be a need for, there used to exist a condition for people to validate their expertise by actually being an expert, right? Then we moved into the era of bullshitting. If I say it, then it's correct because I said it. If it's true, then it's true because I believe it. If I think it, my thoughts are the perfect and most excellent thoughts that can ever be thought. So everyone else's thoughts are wrong and my thoughts are correct, right? We moved into this bullshit ass spectrum of people that didn't want to validate themselves. They wanted to just say they were great, and you had to listen to them. And because they said it, it was so, right? And a lot of that is the consequence of money, right? A lot of it is because if you have money and people want money, a lot of people are willing to just do and say whatever they have to do or whatever they have to say to get the money that they need to be able to survive, because we built our foundation, our economic foundation is built on inequality, whether it's institutional racism or not. It doesn't matter if you're German or Russian or Chinese or Hindu Indian or Jamaican or whatever. It doesn't matter. The vast majority of the economics of America, of the world, global economics, is built on inequality. Deliberate, structured, profit-motivated inequality. And that is a direct consequence of the transatlantic slave trade, because the transatlantic slave trade was built on undercut everybody else so you can make more money, right? It's not enough that everybody has enough and everybody can function at a universal level. It's make more than a person next to you, bankrupt them so that you can feel superior and you can show the world that they are inferior, as a driving motivation to convince people to be invested in something outside of themselves instead of being invested in themselves. Instead of being content that you as a father and as a husband has enough resources for you and your family and the close people to you so that you can take care of self and everyone around self. The world moved into the space of I need to have the most for no reason other than to make sure that nobody else has enough so that I can feel superior as I stand over and lord over everybody around me that doesn't have enough, right? And that is the energy of the present day world. African Americans frame it as institutional racism, but that's the standard way that the global climate actually exists and works. And I don't understand why, right? Like the political conflict with the Republican and Democratic Party as it stands in America it's not about making life better for Americans. It's about these individual people in positions of authority that have lost the direction of why they have their position of their authority, trying to win points to favor the interest of people that have money at the expense of people that don't have money. And I don't understand why it's necessary. I don't understand why it's necessary. I don't understand what the benefit is of making rules, laws, ordinances that don't work. I don't understand why. We want to pass gun laws to restrict access to guns for honest people that want to protect themselves, as if the type of person that wants to commit mass murder is also the type of person that would follow rules, regulations, laws, and ordinances. And you would think that we would have the capacity to recognize that if we're having mass shootings and we're trying to legally allow people to protect themselves, that would be the structure of the structure. But it's not that. It's the let's bullshit it, let's disrespect each other, let's prove our points, let's validate our our position and tear other people down for what? Like, for what at the end of the day? This is the reason. This is the reason why I'm not a Christian. The main reason why I'm not a Christian is because I'm not allowed to ask God, why did you give me the life that I have? Why did you give me the life that I have? Why does my life have to be structured and formatted like the way that it is? You're all powerful, you're all knowing, you're present everywhere, and you have the power to change the world. Why do I have to live like this? And the reason why I'm not allowed to ask that is because Christianity and all religions were designed to justify why politicians have the right to tell non-politicians what they're gonna do, right? 5 men, see the sandwich? 5 men can run up on my car right now and take my sandwich from me, and there's nothing I can do to stop them. But politicians have been created to justify explaining to people why we shouldn't run around and steal from each other. Because if you can steal from me, then I can steal from you. If you have the right to take what I have the right to take what you have. If you have the right to murder me, I have the right to murder you. So we created ideologies, we created classes and groups and justifications for why some should be able to have this thing and not other people. Why is it okay for this person to be able to have a gun, but it's not okay for this person to have a gun, right? And the most important thing about what I'm saying right now is you need to be very careful as a young person with these terms like ADHD and ADD and all this other mental illness. Like, none of that stuff is mental illness. The most important thing you have to understand about being diagnosed with a mental illness is you won't know that you have a mental illness. You won't be able to know. You will forever disagree with people trying to convince you that you have a mental illness, right? On top of actually being able to be functional, right? Like, I disagree that I have a mental illness. Oh, you just proved that you have a mental illness. I am a functional adult. My mother raised me to be a functional adult. My father raised me to be a functional adult. I function inside a dysfunctional system. So sometimes my function inside a dysfunctional system seems to be dysfunctional as it is in opposition to dysfunction, but chaos and disorder can't mix. And when you are in order operating in chaos, it looks like disorder, right? That's just the way these things work. So I'm at the point where I'm about to start ranting and I need to get to work. So I'm going to just end the stream here, and hopefully in the future I'll have a more organized talking point. But as always, my name is Paul Emerson. I've given you my 2 cents.